Hey guys, Lavoie here. Welcome to another Easy Paint. Today we're going to be painting dinosaurs. So, before we get started with our dinosaur painting, I'm going to show you a few things. So, what I have here is I have a tray. It's actually an ice tray, but I just want to show you. This is a great tray for doing your painting, for keeping your paints. So I use the back of the lid as a palette so I can mix my colors. And then I got all these great little cubes here that I can just fill up with paint. And the reason why I like this is because you grab some saran wrap or some cling film and you just stretch it around when you're done and it seals it in there. And this stuff will stay fresh for weeks, even months. So I just want to encourage, if you're doing lots of painting and you're looking for ways of keeping your paint fresh, these little paint trays are awesome. So if you're using it, make sure you wrap it nice and tight with, I don't know, shrink wrap or saran wrap or something. Anyways, so this is what I'm going to be using for this because I just think it's easy and I can fill it full of acrylic paint. Okay, so let's get started. First dinosaur we're going to do is a long neck, a sauropod. Okay, so the long neck dinosaurs. I just like to start with simple shapes. So that's going to be his head. This is going to be his body. Okay, so then you connect the head to the body like that. And then his tail is just a long thing like that. And then two little square things for legs. And this is how simple the shapes are. And you can right away see it's a dinosaur. And there's something about it. Like when a little child does this, it's so satisfying to feel like you've completed your first little animal drawing. Let's just fill him in. He'll be purple. Real simple shapes, but keeping it simple. Now, to make this shape look a little more three-dimensional, what we're going to do is we're going to remove paint. So while it's wet, you can easily remove the paint, like that. And his back leg sticks out like that, and his tail. So there's a little highlight on more of the top of him, and then underneath him, let's go with some strong black color. I'm gonna make this leg a little shorter. So that's his other leg on that side, and this here. I like to make the back legs look a little bit more like a hind quarter leg. This kind of like L-shaped thing. And just by doing that with your dinosaur, you're learning the first step of being able to draw hind quarters on all animals. Most animals have it, like dogs and horses, they all have hind quarters. Okay, so, and then we're going to make his little head. Kind of shape it in a bit there. So see all that excess purple? Just remove it now with water, and maybe just going to throw a little white on that, just to kind of blend that purple away. Same with that little. And see how that gray that's going around it? What it does is, what I'm doing is I'm removing all the white that's around my painting. And he tends to sit there nicer. He glows a little bit more. And of course, you gotta give him an eyeball. So, because he's so small, let's put a little dot for an eyeball. There. And if you want to go a little bit more, you can add a shadow now underneath him. So there's my shadow. Okay, so that is our long neck dinosaur. And it's the same kind of principles for all of them, is how I approach it. And that is, start with a circle. This is going to be his body. This is going to be his head. This is going to be that horned dinosaur. And this is going to be his snout. And then we're going to give him some hind quarters again. So a little bit of an angle like that. And we're going to go down straight, and then down like that. And then we'll give him a tail as well. Just always give the tail a simple triangle shape. And then we're going to connect all this. So this will be his neck. It'll be connected to that. And then give him two horns, like one and they give him a horn in the nose, like that. I like this guy. He's my favorite of all the dinosaurs. It's this guy. Okay, and once again, to make him look a little bit more three-dimensional, I'm going to remove paint, like remove that on top there. And I'm going to take my water, and I'm going to kind of remove this here, remove some on his hind quarter, a little bit on his tail. This, the horn that you want on the foreground, this will be that horn there. So this horn and there. And I'm going to take some dark color again. I'm just going to go right for black. And we're going to shape this hind quarter a bit. It should go straight down. It should go a little bit of an angle, not too much. And then his body is like this, his front. Yeah, and I'm going to put another leg right there. So. And we'll outline this a bit. There's his mouth. They have horns here too as well. And that horn back, that's the back horn. Of course, you want to give a little eyeball, just like that guy there, just a little dot. And you can connect the neck. All right, now for our next dinosaur is the T-Rex. So once again, start with the head. This will be his snout. This will be his body. You got to make his body at a bit of an angle. He's a little too close to the page, but we'll curl his tail up a bit. Okay, then his leg, he's got those hind quarter legs. Always make your hind quarter like a triangle. Okay, and we'll put his little feet there. And we're going to just put his arm here. He's got a little arm, little T-Rex arm. Okay, there you go. See the shape? And now we'll just soak up some of this paint like that. And just gonna put a shadow, like just outline it a little bit. Always make that hind quarter point towards the tail. See if it's a V, there's the tail. And let's just now go underneath the leg. See how it always points towards the tail? Okay, now let's put the arm here. And this will be his other leg behind it. See how it's standing? You can see it, it's a little bit of it in the shadow. Now we're going to make his back. Feels like he's got a long neck. But what we'll do is let's just see what we can do with this. Let's okay, make his mouth open. That way we can show his teeth. Now I like that little white dot that naturally happened there. So we'll leave that as the eye. Just put it right by it. Let's give him some sharp teeth. The thing I don't like is his neck's too long. So let's just kind of shorten his neck a little bit. Or, no, I know, we'll lift up his arm. So let's just try to erase this a bit. There's his arm now. Okay, let's just, yeah, I think that works. Let's put a little more shadow here. So you see how he's standing? He's a little standing dinosaur. So there you go. There's the 3 dinosaurs. Now, let's put a shadow here. Okay, let's start our painting. When I do these animals, I try to make them look more like animals. Like I think of, for instance, okay, so I got some sketches here that I quickly did, right? So for instance, this animal, I was thinking more of a dog sniffing the ground, and because they're vegetarian animals, I figured, well, you know, eating fruit is like being a vegetarian, so maybe he eats apples that fall off a tree. So I figured this is the moment he's kind of sniffing the apples just before he's about to eat one. So most of this is based on a dog sniffing apples, rather than a dinosaur. Maybe with his neck curling around like this. So this will be his head. And he's looking at something behind him maybe. So there's his neck. And then I'm going to put his body. So I'm going to try to fill as much of my canvas with him as possible. So this will be his body. And I'm just using brown and a little bit of or yellow and a little bit of purple. And that's going to give me the brown I want. Okay. So we'll just fill in this. This will be his body. Make his neck a little bit more bigger and powerful. We can have fun with that. Okay. So I'm just going to fill in his body here. And we are going to try to make him as massive as possible. There's his back. Okay. And I'm going to have him, he's in motion. So his arms pulled back a little bit. There's usually a joint there. There's a joint there. There's a wrist there. And then there's probably his foot right there. So he's kind of off this foot. So he's kind of lifted his foot up. And then this other one will be holding all the weight. Okay, so by just adding straight purple on it while it's wet, I'm doing it underneath because purple will be darker than the yellow. So just blend that in a little bit there. Remember, there's a joint right there. There's a joint right there. There's a joint right there. This is like a shoulder blade right here. This is like this thing, and then this is going to be this thing here. Okay, and then on the back, he's got like a total pelvis bone right there. So this is his pelvis, and right there will be connected the leg, and then he's got his hind quarter, which is something we don't have. We as humans don't have this. It's a little higher up. And then this comes down like that. Okay, I'm just flushing out my shape is what I'm doing. Okay, his tail's gonna go right off, right? So we're gonna give it a bit of a twist. We'll maybe have it standing straight up like this. This is kind of unusual. Usually dinosaurs, people paint their tails down like that, right? I'm gonna make his tail up. Like somehow, this guy's warm-blooded, he moves quickly, he's got energy, so his tail goes up, and we'll have it maybe going off the page, and then bring it around a little bit like that. Okay, so you got these two curling things that come in. Hopefully this will make a nice composition. Now for referencing, I like to look at elephants. I like to look at, horses and dogs and try to get my feeling from that. Like I like the idea of a horse, like a dog's tail. Like this feels more like a dog's tail coming up like that. Horses have little whippy tails, like little, grass coming off. So there's my dinosaur shape. Now, let me draw a bit of a horizon line like this. Okay, so I think I'm happy with the shape. I'm just not sure about making it come off the page and having this much shape there and that much over there. It's the only thing I don't like. Like I should have thought it out a little bit more maybe, because it feels like he was placed on there. Like if I had Photoshop, I'd move him over. You know how you can move your image over around? When you paint, you got to kind of live with your painting or start over again. Okay, so we are going to remove some paint just so that the shape of him is on there a little nicer. Now his head bending around like that, we can have a little bit of fun with that. Depends on which way. Maybe it's bending this way, in like this, or maybe it's bending that way. I like the idea of it bending this way. So you're actually going to see this part. And then this other part will be darker because it'll be maybe in the shadow. So let's do it like that. So this is in a shadow. Actually, I'm going to pull it over. I'm going to move the whole head over just so that it's almost coming off. His head's now there. This part's really thick, so we're just going to erase it with paint. Once again, I mean, we're just, so his head's a little longer than normal. It might look cool that way. We don't know. I actually don't know. It's one of the things I like about creating these things is I like to just make it up on the spot. Okay, so there. He's got to be looking at something on his back, because it feels like there needs to be, your eye is always pulled into this middle part. So you need something there. So we're going to figure that out in a bit. Okay, so some of these little spills and these little drips like that, I actually like that. I'm going to just pick it up before it gets off the dinosaur. I might add to his, okay. All right, let's just make this part a little harder. Okay, so now, I like that. He has, so this is telling me where my light's going to be. So he's blocking out the light. So light's coming at us from this way. So this leg will be almost shadowed. Underneath here will be almost shadowed. So these drips here are going to cause problems. So I'll just pick them up. I want this area in here by the shadow to be probably my lightest area of the painting. And I'll just really contrast that shadow even better. And just suck that up a bit there. Okay. Now they've got these little bones in there and their little claws, or not claws, but their feet. So we'll just do that a bit. I want to make this foot off. Maybe he's just balancing on one toe kind of thing. I'm sure they didn't really pose like this ever. It's a little bit more kind of graceful. Like I'm sure there's tons of weight here in real life. But for artistic purposes, I want it to feel a little bit more graceful. Like he's just, something's bothering him. He's moving, he's kind of twitching, I don't know. Okay, I think this is looking good so far. Put more yellow up in here. Okay, so thinking of animals, buffaloes, dogs, bears, they all kind of molt in the springtime. So they get rid of all their winter fur and they get this, they look messy at that time. Reptiles, snakes and lizards, they all molt as well. So they lose their old skin and they have new skin. So it's safe to say this guy might be molting. And while he's molting, all his skin's kind of falling off. So we'll show that on the top here. Okay, and that's why he's turning around, he's looking at this molting skin. But that isn't enough to kind of tell a story. Like he's looking at his molting skin. So what we could do is we could maybe put like little birds. You know how when you see elephants walking and they've got these birds landing on them? So we could show little birds landing on it and they're eating all the bugs that might be, or the dead skin or something like that. Or the other thing too is maybe these animals are so big, they're like whales. And so you know how whales get barnacles on their skin? Like think of that. This animal's always moving and yet barnacles are forming on their skin. So maybe this animal, because he's really big and old, he's got like some kind of vegetation forming on him. And I've seen elephants where they get kind of this mossy stuff growing on their skin as well. So maybe he's got this moss growing all over him and the birds are kind of nesting in it. And that's what he's looking at. So that might be a better approach rather than the molting. So I'm going to paint some of this background, which I'm not sure. I haven't really thought of this. It's painting too much right now. So I'm just gonna put some color on the bottom. Now, when you're doing these paintings, I mean, you can do it like more like so it's a painting, and less like a illustration for a dinosaur book. So let's do that. Let's turn this more into a painting. So maybe he's on the top of a hill. So a hill's very iconic for like a painting, like it's a heroic kind of picture. So he's on the top of this hill. So we'll pull things down. Okay, so I'm just going to fill in the background with more light colors. I want the background to glow a little bit more and have the dinosaur stand out a little bit more. He's a little bit darker. I'm going to put clouds in it, and the clouds are going to create shadows. Let's just sharpen this tail here. I want the tail to look a little bit more pointy. And by darkening the sky and lightening it at the bottom is a good way to get the sky looking. Okay, so he's turned around. He's looking at this moss growing. So I'm going to lighten this a little bit. Now, one of the things about creating the size of this dinosaur is by putting shadows on him so that it feels like the clouds are kind of breaking up the light that's shining through. So we'll put that a little bit later. So as far as the moss that's growing on him, you're going to put a shadow on one side and highlights on the other. Okay, so I'm just using a smaller brush for this, and I'm able to get all these little details. Now, one thing to put scale in this is I'm going to put some birds. So I just have to think about what kind of birds I'm going to put. When you think of an elephant's got those egrets that ride on them. So I'm thinking of those white egrets. We'll maybe go with that as a bird. Okay, so just adding a little bit more. I just want this to feel kind of mossy, like not mossy, but like growth. Like he's almost got an ecosystem growing on his back. Okay, so now this is the fun part. I call this a Zen part. This is where you're going to create all the wrinkles on this dinosaur. And so it's by adding shadows and then highlights, and make sure the light comes in from the one direction. So just highlight all the tops of you go in there and make some dark lines, and then you go and highlight the opposite side of it. So this will bring out all the wrinkles and scales or whatever you want to put on your dinosaur. And it's a quick way of adding what feels like a lot of detail to the painting, but really it's not. It's just like, it's following like just a little rule, like left, right, left. And then he's got these little nails, and you want that to stick out a little bit. Now for his head, just think of the eye. An eye on a dinosaur is probably the same size as an eye on a horse. So it's not very big, so that'll give him some scale as well. and we're going to add some wrinkles all the way down his neck here, and make sure they bend the direction the head's going. Like think of the head like a tube. It's a little bit of a flat tube. It's not perfectly round, but you want to go contour around it. Okay, add more wrinkles. See, I'm going in with my dark colors, and now I'm going to highlight it with white. And just go in there everywhere there's a little shadow. Okay, this might be a little much. I'll smudge it with my finger. Okay, so. And I like to contrast this as much as possible. Like you might be feeling like, wow, this looks like hair you've put on there, Lewis. But it's and scratches. But it's strong highlighted, like black and white wrinkles. Okay, I'm going to let this dry before I add my white highlight to it. So for an egret, he's got a body, and then they got long necks. So I'm going to make his wings here, and his body and a tail feathers. Maybe I have one over here. I'm not sure. Might take him out. Make this guy a little bigger because he's kind of small. Okay, smudge that. Just gonna there. It's got a nice little head and a neck. There's his head, his neck. Put some feathers on, or his wings, I mean. This on this side. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit of the gray on there, just so he's not so white. And then when I go and put another highlight on him, he'll actually stand out again. And these guys look kind of in the background, so I want one guy in the foreground, so he's right on top of my dinosaur. Okay, so put him right there. His head's a little weird looking. I'll just clean that up. There we go. So I got one bird in the foreground, the other birds are kind of on top of him. And they're living on this now ecosystem that he's carrying. It's like a walking ecosystem. Like these birds, you know, they'll lay their eggs on them. And I mean, that might be a time for a whole other painting, is to put the little nests on the back of one of these guys. Okay, so let's quickly put some clouds in. The clouds are also going to give the scale. It'll also feel like there's, you know, like light and shadow from a hot summer day. Now remember, when you add the highlights to your clouds, I always like to put my clouds in a little bit dark, and then you highlight it so it just stands out. And I usually go with a little bit opposite color than what the sky is. So if the sky's blue, my clouds will be a little bit warmer, like gray. Okay, now, so I'm going to quickly do this, add all these highlights. I'm going to speed it up too, so you're not being bored by watching me put 100 little white dots next to the black. Okay, so what we're going to do is the glazing now. So what I've done is I've mixed a kind of a brown using yellow and a little bit of orange, or not orange, but purple, and we're going to just paint over everything. So what it's going to do is soften up these wrinkles, as well as give him some color, so he's not so white and contrasty, you know. Okay, I'm going to do the same down here. So I got lots of purple on my brush, so I'm going to kind of purple up this bottom area here. Okay. Now, just add these little pockets of light shining through the clouds, so they just kind of peer onto the grass, so it's nice and bright. Okay, and we're just going to put this yellow right up in here. It just kind of gives them some nice color. Put this yellow all over. So I'm just painting on top of my painting. It's like staining wood. So a little orange, make it a little bit oranger, like maybe it's the sun setting a little bit in the distance. Not really. He's got, maybe this is his color. Maybe he's kind of a goldeny color. Okay, so add a little bit more shadow here. All right, I think he's almost done. I think this is almost it. Okay, so there you have it. I'm going to put a little bit on his head there. Okay, this is good. I think this is pretty well done. I'm just going to add some white highlights on top of everything, and we're going to call it a finished painting. And this is it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm just going to bring out these birds a little bit more. Thank you very much. I'm Lewis Lavoie, and I hope you learned something. There's a lot in this lesson. There's a a lot of different painting techniques, a lot of different ideas. So hopefully you're able to glean something out of this. If you don't like dinosaurs, you apply these to a lot of other things. This painting took me probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to paint. So I'd love to see what you came up with. So please post your picture online, and we'd be delighted to see it. And maybe we can get you out a little prize for this one, because I got lots of dinosaur stuff. Thanks again, and see you next week.